Thank you very much for holding this event for everyone to come and to talk about this issue, and thank you of course to the City Manager's Office staffers for putting on such an informative presentation. And I do hope that a lot of people in the room have been able to take a lot away from this report, because it is a big discussion. It's really going to change the way that government taxes us over the next 25 years and beyond. So this is a very, very important discussion to have. Now, of course, we have a few problems with it, and one of them is, I'm sitting here and I'm listening to the debate, John Tory from Civic Action, others such as Sarah Thompson from the Women's Post. They're calling for an honest conversation, but they're unwilling to define how much they want average families to pay per year additionally. We hear from Councillor Palacio, and I don't mean to misquote you, but I believe you pegged it somewhere around $900 per year extra. We believe that could be higher. I don't think there are many people in this room, or many people around Toronto, who can afford an extra $900 per year. Now, Metrolinx states that the investment for this project is a mere $1.30 a day. They prefer to speak about it in these terms. It's the cost of a cup of coffee. That cup of coffee has since morphed into a list of 11 different taxes. Everything from a $1.4 billion income tax, to a $1 billion parking levy, to a $500 million fuel tax. The total revenue from the tax grabs is well above the $50 billion Metrolinx claims it needs to build what it calls a complete multimodal transportation system. Now that $50 billion, that's almost 6 years old, that figure. It hasn't accounted for inflation. And I know many of you live not far from St. Clair, and we've seen that project nearly triple in cost. I shudder to think, when I see $50 billion being put forth as the first number, I shudder to think what that final number will be. The province has a $12 billion deficit right now. And as the staffers from the City Manager's Office said, this is a provincial tax initiative. I'm not convinced that once these taxes and tolls and fees are implemented, that the province will resist the temptation to funnel this revenue and apply it towards the deficit. Then all of a sudden, the government is now dependent on these new taxes. And instead of having temporary taxes that build transit, we have permanent ones that don't. If you want a recent example of that, when David Miller was mayor and Shelley Carroll was councillor and budget chief, she brought in a $60 vehicle registration tax that was supposed to go to maintaining our roads and infrastructure. She used it in general revenue to balance the books. That is a fear we have with this plan. Now, the problem in Toronto specifically, and I hear this all the time from our members, is that David Miller raised taxes so high without being able to provide better services that people have had enough. And I don't blame them. I don't think anyone can blame them. The province has done the same thing. Taxes have gone to record highs, spending has gone to record highs. The government has invested virtually all of this into soft services, things we don't see, rather than the hard services such as infrastructure. When people pay more and more and more and don't get anything tangible in return, they'll finally say enough. And that's why we're here today. And that's why we're stuck with the 1970s transportation system in 2013. Now, something that's going to make this an easier pill for taxpayers to swallow is for government to make the first move. What I mean by this is, let's see if the different levels of government can reduce spending on some of the soft services that have increased so much over the past 10 years and 20 years. Let's see if some of this money can be diverted towards infrastructure projects, including the Big Move. I don't think anybody is in disagreement that the status quo is not acceptable. But I think if taxpayers can see the government is serious about its priorities, and it's able to restructure its budget based on the changing realities and the importance of building public transit and other infrastructure, taxpayers will be a lot more receptive to this conversation. One more thing that bothers me about this plan. It's being sold as a way to reduce congestion. It's not going to. This is going to make it worse. At the best, it'll keep it the same, but it's going to make it worse. The more sprawled a city becomes, and we're putting lines out to Georgetown, we're putting lines way into the 905, the more urban sprawl there is, the more people you put on the roads coming in between. It's not going to reduce congestion. You'll have more people traveling. And with an area the size of Kingston being put into the region every single year, there's no way, there is no way we can reduce congestion through this plan. And the city manager's office said this as well. We're looking to keep it the same as it is today. What we have in front of us with the big move, we have a plan that right now nobody can afford, and it's being sold by a myth that congestion will be reduced, and it won't be. Thank you.